Hello, Pokemon trainers! Welcome back to another Pokemon Champions video here on iStarly TV. Today I'm doing my weekly meta report video, which I like to talk about usually towards the beginning of the week. Usually I do it on Tuesday because that's typically when things update in this game. So yeah, we're going to talk about the state of the meta in singles, and of course this is a big one because this is our first week after the release of the big Regulation MB update, which means we have new Pokemon and we have new items and everything. So let's see how the meta is looking. So of course, in order to see this data for yourself, you just simply click on Battle from the home screen, and then you go to the very bottom there where it says Battle Data. So click on Battle Data. You can see all of the previous seasons, which could be useful and interesting. And of course, you can also see singles and doubles. But of course, we are looking for season M-3, which is the first season with M-B. I know that's confusing. And you click single battle, of course, because that's what we are talking about in this video. And then you can go R, and it shows you the Pokemon when you press R twice. If you have friends, which I don't, you can see their stats. And I guess once the season's done, you can see all the trainers who finished in the top and everything. But either way, we're taking a look at the new Pokemon. So, big changes, of course. Just a quick breakdown from previous seasons. Pokemon like Garchomp, Archaludon, Meowscarada, Primarina, and like Charizard. Those were, I think, the top 5 pretty consistently last season. But of course, now we have a few Pokemon added to the meta that were not there before. And this is what we're looking at right now. And this is a pretty interesting shift. Actually, you know what? I checked this a couple of days ago, and I think Archaludon was number 2 and Mimikyu was number 3. So Mimikyu has actually risen to number 2. Now, very, very interestingly, right off the bat, I mean, first of all, Garchomp is number 1 still. Very little has changed. And the 2 most common items with Garchomp are still the 2 most common items. Interestingly, Life Orb, which is a big item that Garchomp can use pretty well, is actually the 5th most used item. So very little has changed with Garchomp, but anyway, back to Mimikyu. I think the big reason Mimikyu is number 2 is simply because of the addition of Life Orb. Now, of course, Mimikyu is not a new Pokemon to this game. It did exist from the beginning of the game. From the game's release in Regulation M-A, Mimikyu has been around. However, it seems like the addition of Life Orb, that simple addition alone, has skyrocketed Mimikyu to number 2 in usage. I don't fully remember, but I think Mimikyu was maybe around the 20s or 30s of usage in the previous season. And again, now it is the 2nd most used Pokemon in the entire game, seemingly simply because of Life Orb, which I think is just crazy. Like, of course, Mimikyu is a good Pokemon, but I wouldn't think that just one item added to the game would just make it this good. So the 4 most common moves, these are pretty standard. I mean, this is pretty unsurprising too. And I think a big reason why Life Orb has helped Mimikyu rise to the top is because it just gives Mimikyu that extra power. Like, the biggest reason to use Mimikyu is because of its ability Disguise, which basically gives it 1 free life. Like, you can tank any hit once with Mimikyu, and then after that, your Disguise form is busted. But that gives you like a free turn to do whatever you want, which of course a lot of people will use to Swords Dance, but sometimes you just want to get off the damage too. I actually had a game where I was running Swampert, and I was like, oh, it's just a Mimikyu, I can tank anything it does. And they hit me with Life Orb boosted Woodhammer, and I just completely evaporated. So was not expecting that. Now, Woodhammer is not very common. It's the 8th most used move for Mimikyu, but again, just giving it an extra boost of power in the form of Life Orb has proven to be just a massive boost for Mimikyu. Archaludon's still up there, unsurprisingly, just one of the best Pokemon in the game. Choice Scarf, I don't know if this was high before, but Citrus and Leftovers and White Herb, these are the 3 most common items for Arch. Nothing has changed there. Meowscarada, Life Orb is the 3rd most used item, although not by much. The vast majority of Meowscarada is still running Choice Scarf, which is not surprising. Now, Raichu is now the 5th most used Pokemon. This is probably not very surprising. I think when a lot of people saw the spoilers for the Raichu Megas, a lot of people did expect Raichu Y to kind of skyrocket and be one of the best Pokemon in the meta. And guess what? It is. This is actually a crazy stat right here. 96% of Raichus are Raichu Y, 2.8%, just under 3% of Raichus are X. It's funny because with like Charizard, well, with Mega Charizard, that has always been the thing as well, where there's two different Megas for one Pokemon. And Charizard Y has long been the better or most used Mega between the two by far. This breaks that record. This is a massive, massive gap. I still think Raichu X could have some usability, but of course, Raichu Y is very, very powerful. It's very fast, and it has a very high special attack stat, and it gets 100% accurate zap cannons and focus blasts, which together offer just really good coverage. Then you add in Grass Knot to hit things like Swampert and just other ground types, and you're just kind of in a really good spot there, especially with that good speed stat. So, yeah, I'm not super surprised here, but Raichu is another Pokemon where you look at these moves. It's not doing anything crazy. It's not adding some variation. It's really, when you see Raichu, you're gonna expect it to do these things right here: Zap Cannon, Focus Blast, Grass Knot. But it does those things really, really well, which is why it's in the top 5. After the top 5, we now have Metagross as number 6, which is also a Pokemon that's probably not very surprising. My very first team with this new season, I actually ran Choice Scarf Metagross, and it was pretty good. And it's one of those things where people just don't expect it. Choice Scarf Metagross I still think is really good, and actually non-Mega Metagross I think is also really solid, but people are using the Mega. Once again, very similar to Raichu, this thing has an absolutely massive Mega usage stat. Almost everyone is using the Mega form, which again is not surprising because Mega Metagross is very, very powerful. It has 110 base speed, which is a very solid speed tier. And then I think it's like 150 attack with Tough Claws. It doesn't show it here, but Mega Metagross has the Tough Claws ability, which boosts the damage of your physical contact moves. Psychic Fangs is a contact move, Bullet Punch is a contact move, Ice Punch and Thunder Punch, and even Iron Head are contact moves. So you're just doing more damage. Charizard X also has Tough Claws, and it has been a very, very powerful Pokemon in the meta. So just having another Pokemon that has the ability to use that ability, to use super powerful moves like that, makes a lot of sense. So this thing is just very, very powerful. I think other Megas are kind of getting the love right now, unsurprisingly, like Raichu, as we'll talk about in a second, Staraptor, but Metagross is still an excellent mega. I get those words mixed up now. Metagross is an excellent mega that you pretty much can't go wrong with if you do want to add it to your teams. After that, we once again have Staraptor. And, this thing, once again, as you can see here, very, very, very often is going to be Mega. I've been using Choice Scarf Staraptor to really good success. Choice Scarf Staraptor is also amazing with the Reckless ability, and I've had games where I just simply sweep the opponent's team with Staraptor alone, with Choice Scarf Staraptor, not even Mega. So I just love Staraptor. It's just going to be one of my favorite Pokemon in this meta, and I do expect I'll be using it on a lot of teams. This is my new Mega Skarmory. It's better than Mega Skarmory, which is insane. I've also kind of thought about using a Life Orb Staraptor build with Reckless. One of my favorite builds, I probably talked a lot about this on my channel, is Adamant Choice Banded Reckless Staraptor with just firing off Brave Birds and just doing obscene amounts of damage to everything. We don't have Choice Band yet, so Life Orb will have to fill that void. Of course, we're also going to take a massive amount of recoil by doing that, but I do look forward to trying something like that. But anyway, talking about Mega Staraptor, which is a very, very good Pokemon. I'm actually happy because I've always loved Staraptor, so to see it kind of get its time in the spotlight is really, really cool. Mega Staraptor is a fighting and flying type, 140 base attack, which is insane, 110 base speed, which is very good, and it has the contrary ability with stab close combat, which is insane. So contrary basically reverses stat changes. So if you would have your attack boosted, instead with contrary, it is lowered. The opposite is also true. If you would have your defense and special defense lowered, instead they get boosted. So you just get to freely boost your defenses, and fighting and flying is a decent defensive type combination. And then you also have Roost, and again, 110 base speed. So you end up being surprisingly tanky. And then Brave Bird is just an amazing move. We don't really need to talk too much about that one. These two moves also have really, really good coverage together. Like if you think about it, Steel resists flying, but Steel takes super effective damage from fighting. Flying resists fighting, but flying takes neutral damage from flying. So these two cover each other's weaknesses pretty well. Not only that, but Staraptor actually now gets a Blaze Kick, which is pretty crazy. Not an amazing move, but it's a solid move, and given that it gives it really good coverage, you can't go wrong with this. This gives you a way to hit Corviknight and even Goldango, which are two Pokemon that you would otherwise really not like. Corviknight can just switch into your Brave Birds and just kind of like shrug off damage, and then Corviknight would not take too much damage from close combat. But with Blaze Kick, you have a way to threaten Corviknight, which is pretty insane. And again, Goldango is another Pokemon that hasn't been talked about as much. Goldango is immune to close combat and also resists Brave Bird. So if there's a Staraptor that does not have Blaze Kick, Goldango just walls it. So now that it does get Blaze Kick, Goldango doesn't wall it anymore. A lot of Staraptors surprisingly are running Whirlwind, which is pretty interesting. And then U-turn sub. Again, just a variety of moves here. Staraptor, Mega Staraptor is very, very good. And personally, I have been loving non-Mega Staraptor even more. The next two here, actually the next three here, this is kind of insane. Charizard and Corviknight. These two have dropped. These two have absolutely plummeted by way of these new Pokemon just kind of clawing their way into the meta. Charizard was once the second, maybe not the second. Charizard was once the third most used Pokemon consistently. It's now the 8th. It's still in the top 8, and I still think Charizard is a very, very good Mega. And I think it has reasons to use it over even stuff like Raichu or Staraptor. It's all team dependent, but I do still think Charizard is a very good Pokemon. But obviously it has plummeted, which some people might be happy to see because of the fact that this thing kind of was the best Mega in singles for a long, long time. I think it's also a very, very good Mega in doubles. So this is just a kind of a terror. So to see it drop is pretty satisfying. I think in previous metas, we had like about 60-ish%, maybe 60 to 70% for Charizard Y, and then about 30-something% for Charizard X. So the gap has widened. Charizard Y is more of a threat, or more commonly used at least, than Charizard X. Maybe it's because, again, Metagross exists, and that also has Tough Claws, so that just kind of has rendered Charizard X a little more obsolete. I don't know. But either way, very, very good stuff there. And then Corviknight was also one of the top Pokemon. I think this thing was pretty consistently in the top 5 most used Pokemon for both of the last 2 seasons. And it's now number 9. I think this thing could possibly fall out of the top 10 at some point, but it's still a solid Pokemon. But I do think that the meta is way more hostile towards Corviknight now. Archelodon has always run Thunderbolt, and I think a big reason for that is because of Corviknight, but also one of the most common Megas now is a Pokemon that can just destroy Corviknight in the form of Raichu. Staraptor now also gets Blaze Kick, like I mentioned, so things that Corviknight would typically beat before have ways to beat it, and now there are also more ways to beat Corviknight. So yeah, I could see this continuing to drop, but it's still a solid Pokemon. I think I would not fault anyone for still using it because it's just still a very good defensive Pokemon with a very good typing. It's still very good against Garchomp, pretty good against Meowscarada. If Metagross does not have Thunder Punch, it's also very good against Metagross. So yeah, this can still be a very good answer to some common threats, but of course it is less good now. Hippowdon is also now number 10. It used to be number 6. And it did get a new item, Smooth Rock. I've been running Rain with Pelipper holding Damp Rock, and this boosts the weather by 3 extra turns. That does not sound like a lot. It's a lot. In singles where you have where it's 3v3, the battles typically go a lot faster. Extending the weather for 3 more turns sometimes is huge. If the opponent doesn't have a way to stop your weather, like extending the duration of your Sand Rush Pokemon or your Rock types getting this special defense boost, that is pretty big, surprisingly. So yeah, Smooth Rock on Hippo could give it a newfound place in the meta, but of course this has always been a good Pokemon. Similar to Corviknight, of course it has dropped a lot, but I don't fault anyone for using it still. It's still the best sand setter in the game. I think just, Charizard still has weather now. Ninetales might be more common because of Light Clay, which we'll talk about. Pelipper might be more common because of Swampert. So there's more weather going on in the meta than there was before, but I still think Hippo's just a very good Pokemon. Even if you do this these 4 moves that Hippo would typically run before, you can't really go wrong. Then we've got Swampert at number 11, kind of clawing into the top 10. Non-Mega Swampert is very good. These 3 items are very good on it. And then, of course, as you can see here, the Mega is the most common way to use it. I've done videos on my channel and made teams with both Swamperts, with non-Mega Swampert and also with Mega. They are both very good. Swampert is a very good Pokemon. It also has an amazing typing and very good bulk. It's only weak to grass, which sadly there's kind of a lot of grass types. Maybe not a lot, but it feels like grass is a little more common now. You know, if Charizard can switch into you and set up Sun, it can kill you with Solar Beam. Meowscarada is a huge threat that you never want to go up against. Like I said, sometimes Mimikyu will run Woodhammer. Raichu can run Grass Knot. So grass is more common right now than it was before. But if you're not going up against grass types or grass type moves, Swampert is an absolute threat. So yeah, I really like Swampert, and I think its place in the top 11 is deserved. I think it could go into the top 10 at some point. It's a very good Pokemon. Next is Blaziken. Now, I'm not going to talk about all of the new Pokemon in so much detail, but, you know, at least here we'll talk about Blaziken because this is another Pokemon that's just really good. It's not perfect, but I do still think this is just another good Pokemon. Similar to Swampert, it's got about 75% usage with the Mega, and then also its non-Mega is also really good. I have also featured Blaziken. I've featured non-Mega Blaziken a couple times on my channel. I've been building teams with Mega because Mega is very, very good. I've been trying it out. So there's a lot of ways to run Blaziken, and it's also pretty versatile. You can run, I mean, as far as like moves, there's like a lot of different moves you could run on Blaziken, all of which are pretty justifiable. And also a few EV spreads that you could run that are justifiable. Baton Pass is good on it. We've seen Baton Pass with Espathra before. And Blaziken's just like another way to run a good Baton Pass Pokemon. And also Blaziken can be a massive threat by itself. So yeah, Blaziken very, very good. It's a little more niche. It's not niche at all, but it's like a little bit more niche than some of the other Pokemon we've talked about. Because it can't necessarily fit on literally any team. You do have to put a little bit more thought when you're putting Blaziken on your team compared to some of the other Pokemon we've talked about, but it is still a very, very good Pokemon. Basculegion has dropped. I mean, I think Season 1, it was around the top 15-ish, maybe I'm wrong, and then Season 2, it was in the top 10. It's now dropped a little bit, but this is still just a very good Pokemon. Aside from Meowscarada, this is just one of the best Choice Scarf users in the game. I think the 3 best Choice Scarf users, in no particular order, are Garchomp, Meowscarada, and Basculegion. Yeah, so still a good Pokemon. Primarina, let's talk about it real quick. This thing was consistently in the top 3, like for both of the first seasons. Look at it now. This is the Pokemon that seems to have dropped the most. Number 14. It's still a good Pokemon, I think, but I think it's still really good. Its defensive and offensive typings are very good, but I just think the meta is a little more hostile to it now. But also, I think people are trying a lot of new things, which means people are just kind of shrugging off Primarina. It's still a good Pokemon, though. Ninetales is now 15. I don't even know where this was in previous seasons. I would guess it was in like the top 40, maybe top 30, maybe not even. I don't even know. But simply because Light Clay was added to the game, Ninetales is now in the top 20, pretty firmly in the top 20. Light Clay extends the duration of screens, like Aurora Veil, for 3 turns. This is another case where this is massive. 3 extra turns is huge. I've gone up against some of these Pokemon, mainly like Grimmsnarl, but Pokemon that can set up screens with Light Clay. It's really annoying. Like your moves are just doing like such little damage against their Pokemon. Ninetales does unsurprisingly have a newfound boost to its usability. And Ninetales too, I mean, it can set up screens, and like all of these Pokemon are good at taking advantage of screens. So you can pair Ninetales with just about anything and have success with it. So be on the lookout for Ninetales. I forgot to mention too, like, I mean, Psychic Fangs is already a good move on Metagross, but I forgot to mention one big reason to use Psychic Fangs on Metagross is because it does break the screens. So Psychic Fangs is a little bit better now. Brick Break is a little bit better now. If you have a Pokemon that can run Brick Break, you might consider it because of screens. Again, 3 extra turns on screens is massive. Gyarados number 16, Pelipper 17. Pelipper has gotten a boost because Rain is better. It does have the new Damp Rock item. Oh, that's actually the most used item on it now. Interesting. I mean, I was using this, but I thought it would be like Hippo where people were still using other items over it. But yeah, another big reason is because Mega Swampert has Swift Swim, so you want to use Rain because of that. Grimmsnarl is another good Pokemon, similar to Ninetales. This thing sets up screens, and it's very annoying at doing so. I think Grimmsnarl is going to be a very solid Pokemon as well. Hydreigon, my beloved, still in top 20. I'll take it. Love Hydreigon. Mega Dragonite has dropped. Rotom is around where it always has been. Goldango's another new Pokemon. Pretty low. I think in Scarlet and Violet, when those games first came out, Goldango was like in the top 3 for a long time. It's a lot weaker now. They did nerf Make It Rain, so now it drops your special attack by 2 stages instead of 1, like it did before. One massive nerf to Goldango that I'm really sad about. They took off Thunder Wave. Thunder Wave is no longer in Goldango's kit. One set that I used to like is running like maybe Focus Sash and Thunder Wave, and you could paralyze them, and then you could run Hex to do more damage. That was a really good build because Goldango is already kind of slow, so paralyzing something could be very beneficial. Now it doesn't get Thunder Wave, so you're basically stuck running Choice Scarf with these moves, or I guess Leftovers, Life Orb. Goldango's still a very good Pokemon. It does have a good typing, but it is also weak to a lot of common things. So, love Goldango. Sadly, it's not as good as we want it to be. Mega Mawil's 25. This is a good Pokemon. Pretty unsurprisingly. Aegislash has dropped. I think Skeledirge has dropped. Mega Dragalge is interesting. I actually have a team cooking with this one. Hopefully I'll show that off soon, but we'll talk about Mega Dragalge in the future. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty much where the meta's at. I mean, a lot of these Pokemon... Lopunny's now 35. Wow, this is another Pokemon that has absolutely plummeted. To be fair, Lopunny was never in like the top 10, but I think it was pretty commonly like in the top 20. Pretty firmly, maybe like early 20s, but now it's 35. That's a massive drop. But other new Pokemon... Annihilate. Ooh, this is a painful one as well. Annihilate is another Pokemon that was always very, very good in Scarlet and Violet, but they did nerf Rage Fist. I don't know if that's enough of a reason. I think they also took off Final Gambit, which is a move that it used to have. I don't think that's enough of a reason for it to plummet this much. I think Rage Fist is still solid. I think Annihilate is still pretty solid, but people are not really looking at it. It's still a good Pokemon. I think it's worth trying, but yeah, that's the meta. That's the state of the meta. Oh, Floette's number 52. That's kind of insane as well. But anyway, yeah, I know this was a little bit of a longer one, but of course we did have a lot to talk about. Let me know what you are thinking about the current state of the meta right now. Personally, I'm having fun. I mean, there's obviously the Pokemon that are rising to the top, and you're seeing a lot of Raichus everywhere. You're still seeing a lot of Garchomp. The Ascarada is still everywhere, but I just am having so much fun just building new things and trying new things out. So let me know in the comments what you think. I appreciate it, everyone. Thank you so much for watching and for commenting and just being here and for being yourself. Thank you so much. Let me know who your favorite Pokemon is to use in the meta as well. For me, it's just Staraptor. It's just non-Mega Staraptor. I love it. Like I've said before with like Skarmory and Gyarados, I'm going to try not to put this on every team that I feature, but I just can't help it because it's so strong. Thank you very much for watching. Have a wonderful day. Take care. Stay cool. We'll see you next time.